Hi, hello, and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Doing the show live here, going to get right into it. Matt, what do you got for high tempo this week? We'll see. I might have lost him off the top. I will say that I wanted to give Matt a shout-out because he has clinched another winning season this past week, I believe. It might have been the week before, but I'm not 100% sure. But I believe that Claysburg got their 6th win, which has officially clinched a winning season. So as a head coach, he has not had a losing season. So giving him that shout out there. You with us now, Matt? Let's see. He's saying he probably lost me. We might even just have to retry. Let's see what happens. All right. What do you got for high tempo this week as I mess with this?
Oh, God. Well, once again, the Bulldogs were ruiners. We were on the road, over long bus ride over to Southern Huntington, and on their senior night was able to steal the show and get away with a win. Ended up having it be a lot closer than we'd anticipated. We came out early once again, jumped to a 12-0 lead, thought we were cruising, thought we were in good shape. And then we just, for whatever reason, took our foot off the gas, let Southern Huntington get back into it. And at one point we were down almost 2 scores. And as it looked like things were going to go from bad to worse, we had a safety, just struggled to move the ball. And then we found ourselves just ground and pound, was able to get some big run plays and successfully managed to get ourselves back into it and pull the win out.
Yeah, very cool. I said at the top of the show, just so you, as a reminder, because we had some technical difficulties. I don't know how much of this is going to get cut out. But I want to congratulate you on locking up another winning season.
Thank you.
So, consecutive winning seasons. You've never had a losing season.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure you confirmed it. It might have been the week before, but I wanted to just make sure you got that win. You had a big comeback. I was worried there. That was pretty much a nerve-wracking game. But you got one more before playoffs. How are you feeling going into the final week?
Well, if I've learned anything, it's never take anything for granted. So I like the spot that we're at. I think we're fine because of all the injuries and different adjustments we've had to make schematically to the offense and defense. I like the spot that we're in. I feel like the kids are comfortable running the schemes. And I think it's just a matter of another week of continued preparation that hopefully carries over to another win on Friday night.
All right, very cool. I wish you the best of luck going forward and getting ready for the playoffs. Let's get into our NFL talk. I named this show Steelers Lose the Bye Week, and the reason is because now the Ravens are up, I think it's 2.5 games, as they get a big win, and I thought that game was going to be more competitive, but they're able to just push through and just bully their way into a 2.5 game lead. And now the Steelers basically have to continue winning because they're sitting in a spot, and that's why the overtime loss to the Ravens hurt so bad, because they went from being whatever, they'd have been half a game back. Now they're 2.5, because that flipped both teams and put the Ravens in a clear-cut leading position in the division. So, haven't got a lot of clarity on the injury report for the Steelers. Hopefully everyone comes back healthy, but you got to win the next couple games against the Dolphins, the Colts, and now the Rams. I'm still convinced they have to get all 3 of those to get to 5-4 and get back on the winning side of things if they have any chance of competing this season. What are your thoughts on it, Matt? Holy cow. Skype might be down again. We might just have to kill the live show and try to piece together any piece of an episode that we have. I killed the live feed, so we'll just see as much as we can get, and then if I lose you again, we'll just run from there. So what do you want to talk about in the NFL?
Well, the one thing that I saw today is that you look at the Patriots, who are 7-0 right now, and added Mohamed Sanu. Their receiving core was banged up, and they go out and they get a 30-year-old veteran that's going to step right in and contribute.
And there's someone that they targeted for a while because they said that he was scouted when he was at Rutgers. They thought he'd be a great fit. They have 2 other guys from Rutgers on their team right now. And I thought that was surprising because I don't even remember him playing at Rutgers. I had no idea he played in... That was probably before they were in the Big Ten.
He was a Schiano guy.
Yep, a great Schiano guy. So all I remember from those days were like the Ray Rice teams. Didn't know they had Sanu. They're getting him. It's only going to make them better because if you look at the production that Antonio Brown had in 1 week, Sanu's going to be able to fill that void and give them a consistent weapon on offense. And they're already a dangerous team. The defense is just downright nasty. Did you see the Sam Darnold comment about seeing ghosts?
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me either because I saw a statistic today that just blew my mind that the Patriots defense right now is outscoring the offenses of the teams they've played over the last couple of weeks. Like they're ever winning, they would be winning a game against just their defense alone.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by that either. I just knew that we knew Sam Darnold was going to be a work in progress. We talked about it when he was drafted because he had trouble seeing the field at USC, and that's whenever you have a higher level of talent. And then you throw in some of the looks that an NFL defense gets you. I was just shocked that the NFL players were mad that they aired the comment. So apparently the NFL Films, like a representative from NFL, all of their TV productions, goes to the game when they are mic'd up. And ESPN has the feed. They get the clip of that player being mic'd up. They run it by the NFL Films guy. He has to sign off on it every time, apparently. He signed off on the clip of him saying that he's seeing ghosts out there, which I thought is funny. I still think it's funny. It's almost like a joke, like, yeah, I'm doing awful. I'm seeing ghosts out there. And a lot of players, Le'Veon Bell included,
and I think that it wasn't...
We're complaining about it.
But I think like it was good that Bell was sticking up for Darnold. But I think when you look at this also, like they were bringing zero pressure. They were bringing zero pressure. So they're bringing the free safety down into the box, and there was all kinds of different pressure that one of the ways New England's being as successful as they are is they're looking at how teams are protecting the quarterback. And no matter how many guys they're keeping in, they're bringing one more than the other team can block. So someone's coming free on every play. And as Darnold's talking about seeing ghosts, he's thinking that the pressure is coming from here and it's coming from somewhere else. So I mean, I don't think that it's as big of a deal as they're making it out to be.
Yeah, but they're just worried about players making comments that could be embarrassing to them, or I guess from the player their side of things, they're worried about it hurting future earnings. Now, for me,
I think getting your ass kicked on national TV is going to hurt your future earnings more than having some off-the-cuff comment.
True. Plus, it's not like they skipped the sign-off. I know some NFL executives, because they like everything to just be clear-cut, no fun in the NFL. So whenever they heard that he was making like a joke out there, which I took it as a joke, because I know like sometimes you're just in a game, you can't win.
And you're frustrated. Yeah,
you're frustrated, so you're just going to take it out kind of like a lighthearted moment. So I didn't see anything wrong with it, and I don't know why people are upset to begin with. It makes zero sense to me. But I will tell you what makes me mad, what does get me upset, Matt, and that is these fake injury reports in the NFL, because I'm going to tie this into fantasy football right now off the bat. And I know there are a ton of sympathizers out there because David Johnson was the number one trend on Twitter for like an hour or so on Sunday because the Cardinals said that he was healthy and he was going to be the starting running back. He was active. He was going to play. He played, I think they said 3 snaps, and then he sat down. He got 2 yards, and then they put the backup in. So number one, the Cardinals had zero intention of playing him. Then they made a statement at 5:11. The game was at 1. They made a statement at 5:11. Cliff Kingsbury said, well, he was active if we needed him. Why not just come out and say that? And my point is, fantasy football, I had him on my team. I had the backup too. If they just come out and say, hey, he's still banged up, he's going to be our number 2 today, I make the switch and play the other guy. So with all the gambling stuff, and I want to say even daily fantasy, because they played, I think it was the Giants, and it was a team that had horrible run defense. As mentioned, was it Edmonds went off for 30-something fantasy points. If you're playing these games and you're using real money now because it's legal, I wouldn't be surprised if someone just sued the NFL. Because number one, what's stopping them from giving out a fake report? Someone that's gambling, which is now legal, you're losing money because they are lying about it. It's almost like if you went to a casino and you could prove that they had loaded dice or something. I mean, that would be a lawsuit just waiting to happen. And there is precedent too, because I studied this in college. There was an issue with arcade machines, or like the casinos, the electronic slot machines, and even like the claw machines, where some of the odds, they made it seem like you had a bigger chance to win, but because it's digital, they weren't really paying out. And so someone was able to prove that, and they took it to court. I'd have to find the case. I'll see, and I'll put it maybe on the Southbound Sports Twitter. But there is a precedent with that, where if you're misleading the consumers, and yet you're getting profits, because the NFL gets profits from these daily fantasy things. That's the whole reason why they signed off in the first place. There's definitely a conflict of interest. And it's the same reason why the FBI goes after point-shaving basketball players. So what are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, I think when you get into the gambling aspect of it, I do think that there is something to that. I mean, it's no different than a lot of the gamesmanship that a lot of these other teams are doing. You have from week to week where they're saying you have guys that are questionable. I know with Baltimore's Hollywood Brown, he was speculated that he was going to be playing, that he wasn't playing, and was last minute ruled out. And I know the frustration going into that, but I think you also have to look at it from a team perspective. Like when Mason Rudolph comes back, Pittsburgh now has the luxury of saying, is it going to be Hodges? Is it going to be Rudolph? Who's going to be the quarterback going forward? They don't necessarily have to declare that immediately. But they can. But I think that helps in the game planning of how do you prepare for the week, one quarterback over the other. So I think there is that level of gamemanship as well.
And I can see the level of gamesmanship when they are talking about that. Like, okay, it's different for a quarterback, but whenever you're coming out, it's different from saying like, yeah, he's good to go. He went through practice. He's a little bit banged up. And to me, does it really matter if it's a different position? In the NFL, I really don't think so. Guys can fill in, and it's one thing to be ruled out before the game, because that's something totally different. And you had an idea even this weekend about it, which we can talk about here in a second. But I think to rule someone out, that's expected. But to just go ahead and give the false report that someone's going to play when you have no intention of playing him. And you could tell that it was gamesmanship because David Johnson was on the sideline right beside Kingsbury, and you were like waiting for him to come in, and you knew he wasn't healthy. So just say, hey, or are they going to be in a better chance to lose if one guy is out? I really don't think so. It's not like you can mirage it and have him run out and just do, I mean, if they were putting him out on the field and having him run like fake routes, like if it was a receiver that maybe took double coverage and they just put him out there and was having him run go routes or like jog a go route every time, I could see that being some type of gamesmanship. But to just like say that they're going to play and then not play is just totally different. And I really don't see a way that they can get around it now that they're starting to dabble in the money aspect. Because what's to say you don't go to like a point shaving thing with the coach? You don't throw some other accusations in there. And realistically, you're not going to be able to defend them. So I can see this really hurting the product going forward.
But I think here's another thing that you need to take into consideration. Maybe they were anticipating him being ready to go. And then when it came time for pregame warm-ups and stuff, and he's going through some of the warm-up drills, and he's like, you know what, I really don't feel 100%. And they decide at that point not to play him.
But they have that
maybe
built
it was
in.
a decision.
They have the game time decision. They can still roll him out. I mean, you have time to do the pregame stuff. Roll him out. Like I said, that's not my beef because I was ready to go. I had his backup, and I was ready to play whichever one. I sat there for the game time decision, and then to have them come out and say, yeah, he's our guy. Let's go. Start him. I mean, that's a totally different thing. And I honestly think they should be fined because to your point, you went through warm-ups. You knew he wasn't ready. Roll him out. Are you really protecting him? Some people said that it came out that they had only carried 2 running backs. So they were afraid that if they rolled him out, if Edmonds got seriously injured and couldn't come back in, then they would have, per the rules, no one that could go in. But then just say that. He's ready to play, but he's not 100%, so he's going to be our number 2 today. I just honestly don't see. There is 0% of a strategic advantage that you can get by being vague about players' health. And I'll throw Michigan out there for college football. Harbaugh is notoriously vague with his injury reports. What advantage has that given Michigan at all? 0, Matt. 0. They're still not prepared on the road. Like, are you going to... You don't know if Shea Patterson's going to play? Well, how are you going to game plan differently? Like, you're not. It doesn't matter any amount. Like, they're still going to call the same exact plays, and nothing's going to change. Like, Kingsbury wasn't lighting it up at Texas Tech. Do you really think he's going to come in the NFL and light it up? No. We knew he wasn't. I just don't see what's being gained by this, other than you're hurting people, your ratings were down. Fantasy football drives a lot of random people in that wouldn't watch the sport. And you can easily fix it by just making stricter non-play rules. You either play or you don't, or you have to be clear cut. And I honestly think the NFL could step in here. And I'm not big on like organizations telling teams what to do. But if you're having a guy that's your face of the league, and a lot of fantasy football teams, you can't drop David Johnson because he's one of the top guys. So if you have all these rules against cheating, hold the teams accountable too. All I'm saying is I would rather them be straight up, where he's still a little banged up, he's not going to be our number 1, and just have like an interactive depth chart that you can flip on back and forth. You had an idea. So your thoughts, I forget, what game were you even watching? What guy did you have that you thought you'd rather have in-game lineup changes?
Well, I had Minshew on my bench that got me 20 points this week. And I had started Matt Ryan, and he ended up having the ankle sprain and only had 2 points. And so my idea was, and I don't know, random stuff goes through my brain while I'm driving back and forth to work. But I thought, if I have a player during the game, during one of my actual high school games that isn't playing well or is maybe injured and recuperating from one of the injuries, that I can substitute somebody else in. And I thought, mid-game, why couldn't I be able to do that in fantasy? So we start off and someone gets hurt, in the first quarter or first half, and you know that the second half they're going to be playing someone else. Why couldn't you just swap that other person in? Or if you're stuck between, do I start this running back or that running back? There's both favorable matchups. One guy comes out and rattles off, a big run, and you're thinking, oh, I should put him in. It looks like he's going to have a good game. Should be able to swap him in and put that guy that maybe off to a slow start, put him on the bench.
Yeah, that would have benefited me. I thought about it after you told me. So, like, thinking back through it, because I'm trying to think what my original idea was. Number one, the issue with that, swapping players back and forth, it really hurts their Thursday night game. Because I had one of the Chiefs running backs, and that could have fixed my entire situation. Because I could have played, I didn't know if David Johnson was going to play at all. So I had to play the Chiefs running back Thursday night. Because if David Johnson didn't play, my idea was to just play both Cardinals running backs originally. But my third running back The one of the Williams is from the Chiefs, the starting one. I can't remember. Is it Damian? I had him, and so I couldn't wait. If they had all played at Sunday at 1:00, then I wouldn't have played Williams. He got 2 points. And I knew that it was going to be bad because they've been doing like a timeshare with each running back for the Chiefs. But because I didn't know if David Johnson was going to play, I figured worst case scenario, what's been happening with the Cardinals is David Johnson gets double digits, and then Edmonds, his backup, usually gets like 6 or 8 points. So I was just going to play both guys, but I was worried that David Johnson was going to be ruled out completely, which he basically was. And then last minute, I wouldn't have been able to make that switch because the Thursday night game was already over. But I do like the idea of being able to switch guys. I just don't know how they would do that with the different time slots, to be honest. Because if you have a quarterback that starts at 1 p.m., and you're like, okay, I'm going to take him out because he started off by throwing an interception. He looks bad. Like, let's say you had Sam Darnold. I mean, that's a Monday night game. Let's pretend that was a Thursday night game instead, and that's the first game of the week. He starts off bad. You immediately bench him and put in your other guy. How are the stats going to be able to be figured out then? So I think that's the difference. If they all played at the same exact time, I could see that being a huge thing for the NFL. And so my counterpoint was maybe you only hold it to different positions. And so this is my idea. And I know it would have to be worked out too for the same reasons, because Thursday night games, Sunday night games, and Monday night games. But from the big 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. matchups, I thought, what if you could toggle in and out running backs and tight ends? So like if you had a Thursday night guy on your roster, you just leave him in for the entire Thursday night game, rack up your points. But at the 1:00 matchup, what if you could switch in wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends? I think you should have to set your quarterback, your defense, and your kicker because of that same reason. You really can't make a flexible. But if they did like some type of flex position where you could put in three or four guys at a time and then rotate guys in as you wanted, I think that could work theoretically. But I think someone would have to sit down and figure out some math. What are your thoughts on that as a compromise?
Well, I think when you're actually, what I'll do is I'll just look at this week. So this week has Washington and Minnesota playing the Thursday night game. Specifically to my team, I have Dalvin Cook playing for Minnesota. I think if you did it this way where you were able to swap someone out, so let's say he goes out in the first quarter with some type of injury. Even though there's no one else playing in that Thursday night slot, I think it would still make sense to be able to say, well, I have Eckler from the Chargers that I can put in that spot, and I'm just going to gamble that he's going to end up getting more yardage on Sunday when he plays at 1:00 than what Cook would get playing the rest of that or what have you. So that's kind of where I think, you can watch, and some of these guys you can tell like right off the bat they're going to have a big game. You should be able just to look at your bench and go, oh, this guy looks like he's going to really contribute a lot this week. Put him in, especially when you look at what the NFL is doing right now, and they're taking running back by committee. That if you have the running back that's going to be the flavor of the week, then it definitely helps to be able to put him in when he's going to get his touches, because you can go 1 week, and I'm sure you've seen this play out where with Chiefs running backs, 1 week the guy just has 20, 30 points, and then the next week he gets like 3 carries.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I just think that, because most people or most leagues have a rule where you usually have like 2 running backs or 3 running backs, and I think that's where you'd have to have a league where you get 1 running back slot, and you can mix and match. You can put the guy in, like let's say he has a Thursday night game. You put your Thursday night guy in for the entire game. As he counts points, that counts your running back, and then you switch it in. So if you have 2 running backs that are at the 1:00 slot, then it would work like you said. You have to kind of just pick and choose which one you wanted at certain times, because it's almost like taking prop bets. They change the line entirely throughout the game. if someone has a big third quarter, you can bet just on the fourth quarter. So why not switch? Even if you did it by quarters, I think that would work. Like, okay, let's see, of halfway through the first quarter, I know so-and-so's not getting any touches. I'll flip them for the second. And I think it would add more strategy. And if the NFL, if you're listening, it would help you sell subscriptions if you were doing streaming, because I think more people would buy an on-demand package for football games if you had to watch multiple games at the same time for fantasy. Because right now you set your lineup. I don't have to watch, if I have OBJ, and people listen to the show, they know I do because I complained about something he did a few weeks ago. If they are playing the Browns and they're in like a blowout, I don't have to watch that game. I'm going to get his points no matter what. But if I need to switch in and out wide receivers, and I know that he's been punching someone or getting choked out, maybe I can swap him out. So I need to be able to watch that game on demand while I'm doing my fantasy lineups. And I think that would help sell an on-demand, almost like a red zone package like that they had. And I know a lot of people have been dropping that because of the rates and how they've been trying to resell it again because their subscriber package is dropping heavily. That could be a way to draw people back in, give them a reason to watch all the games. Right now, I really don't have one. So I know we're off on a tangent because our connection, it was going to be a strange show, but you got anything else for the NFL, Matt?
Yeah, I was really aggravated this weekend. They had the Giants on as one of the main games on Sunday in our area.
Wait, I don't want the Cardinals game.
What's that?
Who'd they play?
I believe the Cardinals this week.
Yeah, because I didn't get that game, but go ahead.
But I just thought the Giants are 2-5. Well, why do we have to broadcast their game? There has to be other ones that would be more intriguing. And I just was aggravated. There was nothing exciting about watching the Giants. And I don't think there hasn't been, but because they're the Giants and they were relevant in the, 50s, 40s, and they had one play in the Super Bowl with Eli, I don't get it. I don't understand why I have to keep seeing the Giants and hearing about the Giants and how they're not good.
I have the same complaint, but I get weird games instead that really aren't based in the NFC, but like the Redskins used to be the team in North Carolina. We never get them. I think the Redskins 49ers matchup was intriguing, but we didn't get that one. I forget which one we had. It was like was it two losing teams as the matchup? And to your point, it's like, why am I watching this? What incentive? You would think it would be like college football, where each week they pick the primetime game because it's a killer matchup. But the NFL sold out a long time ago with their TV contracts in the Thursday night games now, where they have to give up a big game in the preseason. Like the Monday night games and the Thursday night games are already pre-picked along with the Sunday night games. So you're losing 3 games that TV executives are taking bids on because they think they're going to be competitive games. Now, whether that works out or not, that's up to the teams to decide. And I think they have a rule where they have to have like a certain amount of teams. It's like you can't just pick. I can't pick New England every primetime matchup. But instead, if I want to watch that game, I have to pick and choose. But then they just go for the regular matchups instead of showing me the best game. They just do like a regional mismatch. And I just don't like it. And I don't see the point of CBS not having a second game in the afternoon. Because the 4 o'clock game is a game I always turn off because a lot of times it's not even an interesting game.
I agree.
I know Fox pays big money for that, but at least at the 1 o'clock slot, like if the Giants are on one channel and that game's garbage, I can change to the other one. Or like if you have the dual TVs like I have, then you just watch both games. And if you have fantasy guys, you hope that they're in the one game or whatever, but at least you have an option. The afternoon one, it's like, do I want to watch this? Most times it's no, I don't. and then I don't. Because it's like, how many times can you watch the Packers beat up? I think I've been able to watch every Packers game this year. It's like, why am I watching this? I don't like the Packers. So that's it. You got anything else for the NFL?
Willie Brown passed away. That's something NFL related. The old Raiders cornerback. He was always featured on draft day and reminding everyone that Mother's Day was coming up. So sad to see him pass.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see that.
Figured I'd tie that one in since you were bringing up about the Packers, and they definitely beat the crap out of the Raiders 42-24.
I know. I took the Instagram to rip on you. Because you have a secret love of the Raiders, so we know you do. People that listen to the show, Matt fondly talks about the Raiders to the point where he has guys that wait an entire calendar year to come back and talk trash on him for his love of the Raiders. Supposed to be a Steelers fan, but I'm getting hints that he secretly loves the Raiders.
Al Davis, just win, baby.
That's exactly what I posted. So go to Instagram, look for Southbound Sports, and check out our little meme we posted. I think you'll find it funny. Anything else you got for the NFL?
No, that's it.
All right, let's get into the XFL. So last week we talked about the draft. They did the quarterback draft. And I said we were going to look at the entire draft. But I'm just going to say this. I hated it. They just put out graphics of each player on the teams. Like, I tried to follow the draft. I lost interest immediately. From a promoter in McMahon that knows how to do like wrestling, and we're going to promote this and we're going to make all like these little clips and stuff. The XFL offseason has been the most boring thing. Like, I watched the AAF do the same thing, and I thought, wow, this is really boring. I don't know any of these players. I don't know what's going on here. I have no connection to the teams. They tried to do a regional thing, which I think really helped in the AAF. They kind of do that in the XFL with like the quarterbacks and the coaches. But outside of that, it's like, hey, here's our schedule. It's like, okay, you're going to show me your schedule, but I have no idea who these other teams are. I don't know who they are. You're telling me, oh, we got a big match between and I don't even know the mascots yet, but it's like San Antonio plays Dallas on Sunday, February 8th or something like that. And I'm like, I have no, what would make me want to watch that game? Like, at least for all the trash we talk about the NBA, at least the NBA ties some players to their promotion. Like, they'll do, okay, this Christmas you can watch whatever team LeBron's on now play Steph Curry. And then they really don't even talk about which teams they are. And I think that's what the XFL should be doing. Find the most popular guys that you have on your team and use them to help promote your league. But instead, they're making it very hard for me to know which player's on which team. You're not doing like a big draft and promoting like your number one draft pick and things like that. Like, why not? That's what makes the NFL compelling, because people are like, oh, wow, that guy's the number one pick. They parade him around for months before the draft. Everyone knows who the number one pick is going to be because everyone lets it slip in the NFL because they use that for hype. And then they still do the will they, won't they. And most of the time they do pick who everyone says they're going to pick. Sometimes they don't. Like, come on, XFL. Did you even follow any of that?
Well, no, because it was darn near impossible. But I think taking it, you're going to make me defend the NBA here. The NBA, when they're doing their big Christmas promotion, they have established brand name people. So it's easy to attach a brand name person to that. With the XFL being a new product, and a lot of the players are getting there, you're not attracting the top tier talent because the top tier is already in the NFL. So you're taking these guys that maybe you've heard of, or maybe they were decent in college, but for whatever reason they're not panning out. You're not going to, no one's going to, outside of just general football fans like me and you are, you're not going to get a lot of outside people to say, hey, come see this quarterback from Utah that's going to quarterback in this new league that we barely heard of. Like, there's not the drop power compared to some of these other ones,
Well, Well, they did the quarterback draft. So they obviously did that separately because they thought the quarterbacks they got were big enough names. Landry Jones in the Dallas, Oklahoma area. Like they thought that was a big enough name to do the draw. We'll use it. He played for the Steelers for a while. I don't know how many years. He was there for a while. So like you have the NFL experience. Use that to draw it in. Use Bob Stoops. Use the coaches. That's what colleges do. I mean, Roy Williams down here at UNC, like his pregame hype up for the Tar Heels was all about him. He did a dance. Because you can't call the players out because that's probably unfair for recruiting reasons. But the coach can go ahead and market and do all kind of books and publicity tours and sign $10 million deals. Why not do that for the XFL? You don't need to know the players if you know you have Big Game Bob on the sidelines. I mean, for real, the AAF promoted Steve Spurrier. Heck, they even were helping. Well, I guess they really didn't help because they were kind of defunct by then, but he still did his ring ceremony when he gave himself a championship ring. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if the XFL came back and tried to get him on the sidelines or some other big names, because you could go that route. If you only have, what do they have, 8 teams? If you only have 8 teams and you're worried about attracting top talent, go the college route. Who cares if Steve Spurrier comes in and only signs Florida Gators and they lose every game? It doesn't matter.
I think it would have been funny to just bring that whole team back. Just have the Orlando Apollos as a team. Just let them, like, oh, you think you're the champion? Come to the XFL.
To be honest, I thought they were going to buy out some teams, but I think what originally happened was they had already had deals in place with cities, and so they couldn't switch it last minute. Because I think if the AAF wasn't so rushed and they both ended up playing this coming year and the AAF folded, I could see that happening for year 2 where they kind of merged. And I honestly think that hurts both leagues, because I think by the AAF rushing, trying to be first and then running out of money, I think if they were going on the same time as the XFL, they would have been able to get some competing money from another television network. Because if the XFL on whatever TV channel bottom was at Fox, if they're getting decent enough ratings, then CBS or someone would see that and say, well, okay, so the AAF could work. Let's throw a couple extra bucks their way. And at the end of that first year, I thought they would have both merged, almost like the AFL and the NFL. Probably not to that level, but at least as a secondary league. But being first just to fold was such a waste of time and money, it just didn't make any sense. So we're going on our quick run here. My next one, NBA. We talked about them last week with their political stuff. Now they are starting to ban fans. Did you see this?
I don't know.
They changed their rules where if you are saying something offensive from the stands for any reason, they can kick you out. So, like, let's say you're a fan, you spend a good money, and you're standing there, your team's losing, the other player's showboating, you start talking trash to them. If it's disruptive, like someone could rat you out to security, they could come, they'll investigate, which means they're not going to investigate. They're just going to kick you out. They were doing it to some of the protesters for Hong Kong. People are bringing in signs, and they were just tossing them immediately. So now, anytime you're going to be there at the game, they want you just to sit there. They tried to put in their language about all kind of political stuff and reasons they're going to look for you to kick you out. But Matt, the issue is them. Because a lot of the stuff they were talking about were people with courtside seats. Here's a novel idea. Don't sell courtside seats. Could you imagine if if you watch like old college football replays, there'll be like players down like in the corner of the end zone. When they celebrate, there was always like students there for some reason, or like cameramen, because a lot of fields didn't have that barrier. And guess what? After a certain amount of time, people getting hurt, they put a barrier there. Now your NBA players are getting hurt and they're getting pushed by owners of other teams. Why is he down there? Just put the barrier up, just like in every high school ever, and don't let them down there. Then you won't have to be, because people that are down there are paying big bucks. Now the NBA has to be the police. It's not going to work out. I don't know why anyone put money on a game.
Well, I think it's one of those like they've created this circus, and now that they've allowed some people to get out of hand with it, that now they're trying to pull it back and unsuccessful.
It's the same thing for college. It used to be students down there, and the students had some type of like responsibility because they were going to be at the game. They might be a little rowdy, talking trash, but number one, they're never going to push like other players of things for the most part, because guess what? They're paying to go to school there. They don't want to get expelled. But what a lot of teams did then was they were like, okay, well, let's push the student sections up and we'll let these high-paying people come in. But guess what? Those high-paying people, they pay for the seat down there. Now you can flip certain games on StubHub for like $500 a ticket. It's a no-brainer. A lot of them are just selling them back. So you have no idea who's going to be in those seats. No idea.
But I almost wonder if they would treat that like if you're buying like those season tickets and then you're just like reselling them, if the NBA wouldn't come back and say, we're going to hold you responsible for who you're allowing to sit in those seats too.
But again, it's to the point where you have to pay a seat license, so you technically owe the seat. That's like the legal term that they try to get you with, even though it's all bullshit and made up. So like, if you own the seat, what are they going to do to you? Like not allow you to, because some of them you need to buy it with a license, like a lifetime license you have to pay. And I know this is for college football and even the NFL, I think. Some of those seats you pay for like $17,000, just for an example, might not be that high, depending on where you sit. But then that gives you the right to buy tickets. If you don't want to buy tickets, you can sell your right to someone else, and then they can buy season tickets from you. But since you paid that initial cost to help build the stadium, then you own that seat. So I don't know what other recourse it would have, since they've kind of dug themselves the hole of just trying to get as much money. They're like, let's squeeze as much money as we can. Oh, wait, now we have online where people can just buy tickets from anyone, and you don't have to like check in with like a will call. And so I don't even know how they're going to get out of this. But if it was me, I wouldn't want to go to a game. Could you imagine if you invested money in a game, you took like your teenage kid and they were like yelling and they kicked your family out? Like, I would be completely nuts. It's like they're making it tough to be a sports fan. And it's not just the NBA, it's all the way across.
I would have to agree with that to a certain extent. But I also think, going to a lot of sporting events, there's also a lot of people who cross the line. And it's one thing to have like friendly trash talking, but when like some of the comments are like really offensive, and I think that's what they're trying to police out. In the meantime, though, I think a lot of other people are going to get caught in the middle of this, and it's going to have an effect, and it's going to end up causing things to really die down. But I see what the intent is, and it just, in the meantime, it's going to affect it for people who are saying, well, I paid my ticket, I have my right to say that.
That's exactly right. You should be able to trash talk. If you pay to get in there, guess what? If you're having trouble with people, if you want to ban them, ban them. But I still don't see a point of like trying to limit them. And then I don't even know how you enforce that with online tickets and like how easy it is to just mail a ticket and then just show up. Like, it's not like you have to scan your ID. Like, I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but it's crazy. And leagues going after their fans is just going to hurt the bottom line. Just like the NFL, get rid of tailgate and all this other stuff that's supposed to clean up the league. And then they're like, how come people aren't having fun and going to the games anymore? Like, it's like a head scratcher to them. Hey, why is our stadium empty? Oh, wait, because we won't let them hang out. They're only allowed out here for an hour and you have to pay $100 for park. Of course no one's going to do that to watch a 0-16 team. It's like they don't understand. I got another one for you, though. The Houston Astros. Have you been keeping up on the World Series, Matt? It's been happening for
yes, I have.
2 years now? Everyone hates the Astros. They keep accusing them of cheating. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I have an opinion. They went out and they got winners.
True. They did go out and make deals to get winners.
You can hate the fact that they did whatever they did, but the bottom line is they made the trade for their closer. They made the trade for Cole. They made the trade for Verlander, and now they're reaping the rewards of going out and being aggressive. It is what it is. Suck it up and deal with it, Buttercup.
Here's my thoughts, because I played baseball. Stealing signs, I don't care. I care zero. The whole point of signs is so that you're supposed to change them up in like a gamesmanship mode so the other team doesn't know what they are. If your signs are so dumb that the other team can just pick and choose whatever you're signaling, that's on you. It would be like a football player coming out there and saying, throwing the ball 10 yard out, and then he gets up underneath the center and throws it 10 yard out, and he's like, how'd that guy intercept it? What the hell? He must have been stealing my signs. Must have been stealing my signs, Matt. That's exactly what baseball's doing right now. They're like, oh my gosh, he's showing me that he's going to throw a curveball because he's doing the number 2, the universal curveball sign. It's like, come on, change it up. I remember watching when John Smoltz retired from the Atlanta Braves. And it's almost like a Tony Romo-esque commentary where he could sit there and watch the broadcast, and based on the signs, he knew exactly what pitch was coming, and he could just rattle it off. Oh, yeah, he's calling for a slider down low. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. And then, boom, guy hits it up the middle. He's like, oh, yeah, he's going with the high fastball here. Catcher's not really set up right. This is going to be a ball. And like, if John Smoltz was able to sit there and rattle them off just by watching the broadcast on TV, if the other team gets a guy on second and he's able to see that the catcher's doing the same curveball signal that everyone used since 1968, let him steal the sign. I honestly see 0 point with it. And I think it's dumb that the Yankees of all teams, at least that's who they just eliminated, so I assume it's them, leaking all these things to the media and the Major League Baseball, are complaining. No one's telling you to use the same signals. What do you think, Matt? Is that a good argument?
It's a fair argument. I know that the baseball purists say, no, you can't steal signals, but if you're dumb enough to leave them out there and use the same ones over and over again, then evolve.
I mean, we always joke about Peyton Manning, but I loved it whenever he came out and they kept asking about his Omaha signal. They're like, what does it mean when you yell Omaha? And he's like, yeah, it could be a run, or it could be a pass, or it could be this, or it could be that. Like, he's not going to tell you what it is. But like for baseball, it's kind of like, hey, they're stealing our signs, or they're signaling it. Or like when the NFL went after Ben Roethlisberger for his Apple Watch. And they think that the Astros have a guy that's sitting there signaling down because he can see what the other team is doing. How are they not changing their signs? Like, do they not have fake signs? It's almost like a fake snap count. Like, change it up. Make it fun. Maybe more people would watch if they had a guy that just sat there and tried to steal the signs. Like, let each team put a guy out there and try to steal the signs, because I would sign up in a heartbeat for that job. Pay me minimum wage. On the weekends, I'll come out. I'll sit there and I'll try to guess the other team's signs, because I think that would be an awesome job.
Maybe
at that point, it's kind of like, I don't know what else they can do.
Obnoxiously yell it out. It's a fastball.
Yeah, kind of like high school. Whenever they see it's a run or pass, they'll yell pass or run to the rest of the defense. You yell like, curveball in the dirt, curveball in the dirt. Then people will be looking at me, and if I'm wrong, I'm like, what? I got it wrong. People throw stuff at you. Then I can report them and get them kicked out for life.
See, or you get the whole section just to chant the wrong thing.
Yeah, student section mind games. I honestly think, why not? Because if you get a guy on base, and I assume that that's where they're getting it. I don't know how else they could get the signal and like rattle it in so fast that the guy knows what's coming. They said the one guy was tipping his pitches, but again, that's part of the gamesmanship. I think it was the old Pirates guy, actually. Not Cole, the other one. I think that what they should do is try to mix it up. Pretend like you're going to tell them, like, yeah, like Bull Durham, and just say, yeah, high heat. Here comes the high fastball. And then just see if they can hit it. Tell them what's going to happen. Just start yelling out your pitches as you're pitching. Slider, Like calling your shot. Like instead of yelling bank, you're yelling curveball, trying to throw the guy off. I'm sure they would complain if a pitcher started yelling his pitch as he threw it. Because that would be funny. But I don't know. I don't understand what the hate for them is. And at this point, it's making me want to cheer for them. I don't have anything other than, do I really want a Washington team to win? I mean, come on, that might get the Ravens fired up. We saw the Capitals win. Like, we don't need that. So, go Houston at this point. Because if you're going to cheat and you're going to keep winning, it's almost like the Bill Belichick thing. It's like, hey, did other people do this? Like, yeah, other people were doing this all the time. But then Belichick got caught. Well, then it's illegal now. We can't do that anymore. Like, not once you make a public display. No way can you film all these practices or whatever. It's like they try to nitpick. They try to bring winners down. And then it's
now, my question to you is, if Cole wins the World Series with the Astros, can this be like a UCF where the Pirates get to claim part of the World Series since he was with the Pirates at one point?
You think they're just going to randomly claim a World Series championship?
Yeah, they can just claim a world. They'll just raise and be like, he was on our team and we traded him to your team, so we get part of it.
On social media, they will 100% probably show some Photoshop pirate thing with the World Series trophy in the background. I guarantee it. Anything else you got for baseball?
No.
All right. I honestly don't know how long the show's been going. So we're into college football now. We'll see. This one might end up being short. Who knows? It might be going long. I don't know how much we were disconnected for. Getting into college football, we have Penn State. I thought it was going to be a blowout. I ended up not being wrong. Penn State still won. They didn't cover the spread. Depending on when you bought, it was either 7.5 or 9 I saw. So they came up a little bit short, but I think they've effectively eliminated Michigan from the Big Ten race because I'm looking down through the remaining games. Penn State wins this week against Michigan State. They've pretty much locked up. I don't think they'll drop to a lesser team unless Franklin surprises me. He almost blew it against Michigan. If you're a Penn State fan, it's almost like they clammed up, and I don't know why. But I'll get into that in a second. Michigan State, I don't think has enough. I think Penn State will beat them and effectively lock up the Big Ten East race as the game between Penn State and Ohio State. Because even if Penn State were to slip up to Minnesota or another team left on their schedule, which I don't think they will, the Ohio State game is the game, and it's in the shoe. Unfortunately, Penn State, I think, has to go to Michigan State and then to Minnesota in back-to-back weeks. So all they have to do is split. Get one win, and then you're still going to have to beat Ohio State. If you lose to Ohio State, even if you're undefeated up to that point, you're going to be eliminated. So even though Penn State beat Michigan, Michigan now has 2 Big Ten losses. The only chance would be if Penn State loses to both Michigan State and Minnesota, and then they also lose to Ohio State. And then Michigan would need Ohio State to lose to someone else, maybe Wisconsin this week. But as of right now, I don't think Penn State loses to Michigan State, and I don't think Ohio State loses to Wisconsin since they got upset by Illinois. I think this week we'll pretty much lock up the Big Ten East race, barring some monumental upset like Illinois knocking off Wisconsin this past week. Some things for the notes. That game, this is what scares me. If you're a Penn State fan, this is what should scare you because Penn State is almost a mirror of Michigan. I know that Franklin got lucky the one year in 2016 where they had pretty much all their big matchups at home and they were able to upset Ohio State. I think that one was at home when they pulled off the upset. They lost to Michigan on the road that year. He's had trouble on the road, but because that was only one loss, it didn't matter. They won the Big Ten. He had a chance to run the score up on Michigan again, like he did in 2016 or 2017, I mean, at home. After last year, Michigan embarrassed them, playing their songs, running the score up in the big house. I thought for sure he was gonna try to run it up. Instead, he turtled. He went conservative, and they damn near lost the game. If Michigan's wide receiver doesn't drop a touchdown that was pretty much wide open.
Oh, it was a perfect shot. It hit him right in the chest.
If he doesn't drop that pass, I don't think Penn State wins that game.
Nope.
So if you're Franklin, you escaped with that one. You're going into a couple big-time road matchups. If they come out flat, I think they have the same issue that Michigan does with Harbaugh. For whatever reason, the team doesn't play with confidence on the road. They eked one out against Iowa that was close. Now you have two teams. Michigan State has your number, and then you have to go to Ohio State and play on the road. I don't think they're going to be able to get it done, but if this is the year for Franklin to make a step, like I said before, they beat Michigan. If they can somehow win the Big Ten this year, and they can drop one of these next two games, like I said, that doesn't matter. They'll still be 11-1 going into the Big Ten championship game. If they beat Ohio State, this is the year where James Franklin can take over recruiting in the Big Ten. Because Ryan Day is a first-year coach. If Franklin's able to beat him, he can point to that all offseason. Yeah, but Ryan Day, they lost. They weren't Big Ten champs. Like, he's only been there 1 year. It's setting it up for Ryan Day to kind of lock down and keep Urban Meyer's recruiting going. This is a big year for Penn State, and unfortunately, it's on the road at the Horseshoe. What do you think about that going forward?
Well, I think I need to know more about what this Ohio State team is, to be honest with you, because Ohio State is just mowing people down right now, and it's not even close. So I see the beginnings of a circle of stink starting in the Big Ten with Wisconsin losing. And if they end up, I think that if they end up winning the Big Ten with the loss that they had this weekend, that it could hurt the Big Ten's chances of getting themselves into the college football playoff. I think when you look at the Michigan game, I mean, I couldn't believe that I was saying it, but following along in the later part of that game, a lot of the calls that Harbaugh was making were ones that I was thinking, oh, you need to run up the middle here, and he would. You need to run the quarterback sneak, and he did. And it was like all the plays that he should have, the calls that he should have been making. I couldn't argue with him. The only issue that I had overall with that game was why he didn't try to run the ball more early on. It was like he was trying to. They keep trying to throw more with Patterson, and I think if they would, and maybe it's just the design of Gaddis' system where he's trying to use more RPOs. I know with implementing more spread stuff that's definitely part of the offense, but I think they need to run more in order to kind of chew clock and maintain or keep that time of possession in their favor.
Oh, and I'll stop you right there. I don't know why more talking heads aren't talking about it, but this is now Harbaugh's offense. If you go back and watch the Gaddis system that was in place for the Army game and vice versa, this game was 100% different. It was back to, and I don't even know if it was in the first quarter, Matt. I don't know if maybe that's when Harbaugh really stepped in, but that's when you started to see wide receiver screens. You called it the quarterback bootleg. I've been talking about that. That's a Harbaugh staple. They never would have run that if it wasn't Harbaugh stepping in and saying. They had a bunch of fullback formations. They had a bunch of tight end stuff that they used to run in like the previous 2 or 3 years. They just don't Josh Gaddis just doesn't miraculously go back and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to watch old 49er footage of Harbaugh's offense and see what he used to run. Harbaugh just took over. And I think the experiment, I don't know if it was too many talking heads in his ear. If you look at his stats, Harbaugh has trouble against, they pointed out top 10 teams. But realistically, if you look at that list, it comes down to Florida State and Florida, 2 bowl games. The Florida game, you got blown out, but a lot of guys didn't play, and I think the team gave up last year. The Florida State game, very close. It's not like he couldn't win. He had Jake Butt blow out his knee in that game, so you lose your tight end, and Peppers didn't play. Not saying they would have immediately gave them a win, but that wasn't a blowout by any means. A lot of his other top 10 losses are just Ohio State. I mean, that's it. That's basically your list. Ohio State, and then I think the one Notre Dame game. The one top 10 win was against Wisconsin. I think the other time they were top 10 was this year, and they lost. So that might have been a top 10 split. I mean, I just named all the teams he struggles with that are in the top 10. I guess maybe Penn State this year too. But it's the top 10. It's the top teams that he's always had trouble with. If you take out the 4 Ohio State losses, that record doesn't look that bad. It's because you're losing to the one team. And I don't know if he let people talk him out of running his offense, but his first year here, he ran his offense. They kind of got away with it from like Pep Hamilton. I think he was more hands-off with Pep Hamilton. Although I don't know for sure. We'll see when the XFL comes around what his offense looks like in DC. But Harbaugh took over. I honestly think if he brought Josh Gaddis in the offseason and they ran this hybrid system where Harbaugh said, hey, you're a first-time play caller. I'm going to help you. We're going to do like a hybrid pro / RPO, whatever you want to run, and I'm going to help you go through your first season. Maybe they don't get blown out against Wisconsin. Maybe they don't come out flat against Penn State. But I honestly think that this is a system that could work going forward, and hopefully he doesn't just completely throw it away for the Notre Dame game this weekend. Because that's a big game. If Michigan beats Notre Dame, I don't think the Wisconsin result matters.
I don't know about that.
Because, well, what big win is Georgia still getting a bump for? The Notre Dame. They lost to South Carolina. Let's say Michigan would come out. What if they destroy Notre Dame at home? Because Harbaugh, home Michigan is different than road Michigan. I've said that before.
Right, but I also think that no one's going to, because Notre Dame's been throttled in the playoffs every time that they've made it, that no one's going to give any respect for that.
It's a top 10 team, though. And it's a quality win for Georgia. So it's either going to destroy the Georgia quality win, and then you're back at square one, because you got to say, well, that Georgia doesn't have a quality win now. Like, what's their quality win?
Was it Auburn?
Is Auburn any good?
They're in the SEC.
Exactly. So then you're back to the old circle of suck. You have no idea.
It does mean more, though.
So I think that's a big game for the Big Ten. And I heard that Michigan and Notre Dame are trying to make it a yearly game, which I think is so dumb. Why? That game does not help Michigan or the Big Ten at all. The Big Ten should go to, unless they go to an 8-game schedule and Notre Dame is Michigan's 9th, there is zero reason to lock in with Notre Dame every year. It's a lose-lose.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think you're almost better off. You know, for as much as we've talked about scheduling a tougher non-conference schedule, when you look at what Alabama does, they play their conference games, but then their non-conference games, a bunch of cupcakes and FCS teams. I mean, I almost think that's the route you go. You say we play our tough games in conference, and when we win our conference, we deserve a seat at the table for the playoffs, and you go from there.
But this Notre Dame, these 2 games should have been Arkansas. You can't tell me that Arkansas would have beat Michigan last year or this year. That takes Harbaugh from 10 wins to 11 wins or whatever, if he's able to get it done and they're able to go. Now they're looking at possibly an 8-4 season, 9-3, whatever. That's another bump into your schedule because you're playing teams that you shouldn't even be playing. Like, why? You can get the Alabama bump, like you said. Alabama's been playing Louisville, Duke. Like, you can get that big name bump by not scheduling perennial top 25 team. Schedule someone just outside. Schedule in Arkansas. Schedule in Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State's right there, top 25. It helps Iowa whenever they're good. But you can't tell me that they're going to give you a better game than Notre Dame did. They don't have the athletes. So I just don't see what the point of that is. It's almost like when Ohio State, they made a great move by scheduling Cincinnati. You knew Cincinnati wasn't going to have the athletes that Ohio State has, but they're in the top 25. And they're going to end up with a winning record no matter what. So now that counts as almost like when Oklahoma scheduled Houston, they made the bad decision of losing to Houston. I mean, if you beat Houston, that's a win-win for you. I don't know. That's another scheduling thing. But looking ahead, the Minnesota Golden Gophers are the driver's seat in the West, Matt. Wisconsin lost to Illinois right now. They might not even have a chance, like you said, to win the Big Ten. They lose to Ohio State this week, and if Minnesota goes 11-1, even if they lose to Wisconsin, it doesn't matter. They're in the Big Ten championship game. So you're looking at like a complete shocker. That game to Illinois completely messes it up. Now that means Minnesota would have to beat Penn State to get that tiebreaker without having to beat Wisconsin. Unless Wisconsin loses another one. I don't know. They still have to play Iowa, I think. So, I mean, it could be changing. For the ACC now, Pitt's right there, Matt. They don't have the tiebreaker against Virginia.
Well, I saw this shocking stat. I want to say it goes back to 2011, but when you're looking at ACC conference wins and conference records, Clemson was head and shoulders above everyone. Second was tied, Pitt and Florida State.
See, why not just be a Pitt fan then, Matt?
Well, I was raised in that household, and like I've said before, being a Pitt fan is a lot like being in an abusive relationship.
Hey, I think it's funny that Pitt's right there because that's almost like Minnesota winning the Big Ten West and being your champ. Because people are like, did they really beat anyone? That's what people are going to say to Pitt. Hey, did they really beat anyone? Hey, they played Penn State close.
But I mean, that's almost like, let's say Pitt runs a table and they end up getting it back to the ACC championship. That's back-to-back years that they played for the ACC championship. And then it's not to say it's outside of this realm of they can't beat Clemson because they did it 2 years ago or 3 years ago. You know, however long ago it was, they did do it. So I mean, it can happen again.
Hey, I would love it if Pitt was able to win the ACC. And hell, if they only had 2 losses, I would want them to put them in the playoff. I've said it before. I'm all for, and this is my plan because I've been trying to get some stats behind it. But I think the reason you're seeing the same 5 teams win recruiting every year, be in the playoff discussion every year is because they were lucky enough to make the playoffs when it first started. They were able to tell their recruits, hey, if you want to play in the playoffs, come play for us. Like Clemson gets there twice. Now they're able to use that to piggyback their recruiting. They're recruiting at a higher level than they ever have. They then win a national championship, pumps them up even higher. Oklahoma, though, they didn't win the national championship, but they're able to point and say, hey, we were in the playoffs. You don't want to go play for TCU or Baylor. They had winning records. They didn't even get picked. Like, why would you want to go play there? Like, Ohio State can say the same thing for Penn State. Like, Penn State beat us. They didn't get picked for the playoffs. Come play for us. And then other than like the self-implosion teams that made the playoffs, like the Florida States and the Michigan States and Oregon, I think everyone else has kind of used that as an advantage in recruiting. And I don't think it goes away. I think the NCAA has a problem right now of too many top teams. But guess what? In college basketball, they don't have that. The top teams might get into the playoffs. And a lot of people say, well, football's different. Alabama's guaranteed to win their play-in game. Then play the game. Everyone thought Tom Brady was going to have an undefeated season until they played the Giants. No one thought the Giants were going to win that game. Took a helmet catch. But I want to see them expand the playoffs because I think if they expand it, and I just want them to go all the way to 16. If you do 8 teams, you're going to have the same issue. You're going to have the same 4 or 5 teams always make it. make it auto bids. I don't understand why people are against auto bids unless they are a bandwagon fan. Because I'll say that off the bat. Unless you're a bandwagon fan of one of the big schools, the Alabamas or Clemson right now, because Clemson, it could be cyclical and they could go down the drain if Dabo would leave and go to Alabama. But like right now, if you're one of those two fans, of course you're not for automatic bids because it only takes one pit to ruin your entire year. I think the conference championship games should be playing games and make them exciting. No one cares if Texas or Oklahoma rematches. No one cares, but if that's a playing game, people will watch. If Minnesota is able to get to the Big Ten championship and play against Ohio State, are people going to tune in for that 55-10 beatdown? No. But if Minnesota's playing for a playoff spot, maybe people tune in. What about Northwestern last year? Maybe people tune in. I think at the very least, it helps recruiting because Pitt's able to say, hey, we're one win away from making the playoffs. If you come to help us out, you can put us over the edge. Right now, it's going to say, hey, we were one win away from the Orange Bowl or the Citrus Bowl or whatever other random bowl they're going to put you in. The Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, we're really close to that. And the player's going to be like, but I can just go to Clemson and be in the playoffs. And so I think that's really hurting recruiting. And I think if the NCAA doesn't do anything about it, and paying players could fix it immediately without expansion, but we won't know until that's in place for a few years. I think that the league's just going to keep going down because people aren't going to tune in for the same teams playing in the national championship. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see this year because it looks like it's going to be the same 3 or 4 teams that it's always been. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I definitely think that that's definitely a direction that it could be heading in. But I think when you look at the ACC, you still have. I was trying to be a little bit more optimistic, but Florida State's definitely a year, if not 2 years away from for as many reports that the issues that were on campus, it doesn't look like it's getting any better. They gave up the game against Wake Forest this week, and one of the things that's really disappointing right now is watching a lot of the fan base just being as hard as what they are and trying to say Taggart needs fired and this and that. There's issues, yes, but I don't know that they're at a point where he needs to be fired. And the big thing, aside from the fact that he's in year 2, there's no way in a year and change that anyone needs to be fired, especially when you're having to fight the battle that he's fighting because he hasn't even had a chance to pull in a full class of his own recruits. So you get the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff is close to being settled now. That you get another year or 2 of players in the system, and with your guys, if you can't get it done, then I think it's fair to look at termination, but not right now. And I think that's ridiculous.
Well, you got me on my last topic. The Urban Meyer countdown begins. Florida State, I guess they were boosters.
No.
Started to leak that they're going after Urban Meyer, Matt.
No.
Sooner rather than later. They want to get Willie Taggart's buyout figured out on the books.
No.
What if they get the buyout, but they don't get Urban?
No.
I heard Manny Diaz is good with recruits.
No. We're good. We don't need.
Hey, there's speculation that Harbaugh would go to the NFL, and I would love it if Urban Meyer was the first call.
Well, you could have him because I think there's 0% chance. And I think that it should be a 0% chance that he comes back, period. How many fake injuries does he have to have that we're going to keep letting him come back?
Matt, like I said, if Urban Meyer, and I'll even use Florida State as an example. If he comes back and wins a national championship at another school, that's more impressive than what Nick Saban has done. That's more impressive than what Dabo Swinney has done. If he comes and wins the national championship at Michigan or Notre Dame or Florida State or USC, he's still young. He's only 55 or something. He could coach 2 more teams. He could come back. Let's say Harbaugh jumps to the NFL. He could come, win a national championship at Michigan, take another year off in a few years, and then still go to USC or Notre Dame and win a national championship. I would say that's more impressive than what Nick Saban has done. Because you're rebuilding each program, and I know it's not from scratch, because he took over what Jim Tressel did and immediately had an undefeated season. Jim Harbaugh has high-quality recruits. He could jump right in. Florida State, I'm not sure on. I haven't really looked at their recruiting. USC, high-level recruits. He could jump right in, not miss a beat. Win a national championship.
Florida State, one of the issues that they have right now is they're dealing with a lot of injuries. But I think depending on how the transfer portal plays out, because I think that's one thing that's really going to accelerate their time frame. Because if there's speculation that with Derek King, the Houston quarterback who said he was sitting out a year, he has a connection to Bryles that if he potentially hits the transfer portal, he could end up at Florida State. They get the quarterback that they need to run Bryles' system successfully because he ran it well last year. And then you pick up 1 or 2 more offensive line commits. That completely cleans up the poor recruiting that was done by the previous regime. It clears up the quarterback situation. The athletes come back off the injured reserve. That you're looking at a completely different team that should be much more competitive next year.
All I'm saying is that it doesn't matter because I don't know if that's an Urban Meyer guy.
But here's the thing. If Urban Meyer were to, and it's not happening, but I'll humor you. Say he goes to Florida State and he wins the national championship. I'm going to be excited, but I'm also going to wonder what is his bag man? How does he get it done? Who's his behind the scene guys? Because to do it at Florida and then turn around and do it at Ohio State and then do it at another school, there has to be the behind the scenes figuring stuff out. And then I also would wonder how fast is the program going to implode and he's going to start having headaches.
But what if he fixed that issue? Because if you look at Utah, he set that program up for long-term success and got them invited to Pac-12, Matt. That was his guy. Wasn't Whittingham his guy? I think Whittingham guided them through that transition. So that didn't implode. Florida imploded, but how much of that is on the boosters and them trying to completely change their system after he left? Because, I mean, look at Michigan now. You same coach, you're changing your system. There's going to be growing pains. Ohio State did not implode. But if anything, Ohio State got better.
With Michigan right now, I mean, we're circling back, but when you look at, you're saying about Harbaugh taking over the play calling, I wonder if that stuff was already in the playbook. But when Gaddis was calling the plays, it was more spread based. And I think you look at Harbaugh looking at who the guys are on the roster and saying, you know what, this round peg doesn't fit in that square hole. We have the personnel to fit this style of offense better. And even though he was trying to be patient with it, he recognizes if I don't start winning some ball games, I'm going to end up being pushed out. So you got to go when you really start to struggle, you fall back to what you're comfortable with. So his offense may have been more prominently identified because he really recognizes how close he is to feeling the pressure of the hot seat.
Well, for him, the hot seat is ridiculous because I forget which coach they were talking about, but the highlight for the other coach, I forget which game it was that they won 10 games in 2 years, or like 2 10-win seasons in 5 years or something like that. And I was thinking, for Harbaugh, when he won that was a negative. They're like, only 10 wins, like double digits, haha. But like for everyone else, it's like double digit wins, awesome. Like great work. And so if they were to push him out, Are they going to have guaranteed 10-win seasons? Because it's very rare that you get a run. And like, look what's happening to David Shaw. That's another one, because he was one of the ones they mentioned about how he has a couple double-digit win seasons, but this year they're doing bad. But they still point at those double-digit win seasons. No one points back at Harbaugh's double-digit win seasons and say, oh, yeah, he did that. They're almost like, oh, he only did that. Like, he needs to do more, but they really can't put a finger on it. So, I mean, if you look at what Jimbo's doing, they talk about how much money he's making. Jimbo Fisher at A&M's right there with what Harbaugh's making. Is he having the same success? No. So, like, what are you supposed to do? Is it about the money because no one really cares? I don't care about that. I just want to know what's going to happen. Michigan could run the table with this new system. I mean, that's how long it took Penn State's new system to click, and Gaddis was there with Moorhead when it did click. They would have to beat Ohio State. And then realistically, if you're sitting at 10-2 with a big win over Ohio State, and let's say Ohio State's playing Minnesota then in the Big Ten championship game, where's Michigan in that discussion? Are they going to be left out? Like, a ton of things could change, but the first thing you have to do is win out. I'm just saying, I think they're eliminated from the Big Ten. I think Urban Meyer's looking around. You have the Harbaugh back to the NFL rumors that started once again by his agent or an agent in the NFL. Because for some reason, some agents can't do NFL. If you're in the NFL, it's like NFL only or something. So Harbaugh has a different agent now, I've read, that helped do his college deal. That's why you kept getting the leaks whenever he was leaving the NFL about his agent talking to like the Oakland Raiders or someone. It's because his agent he just wasn't with them anymore. So I don't know. We'll see. But like I'm saying, Urban Meyer, I would be shocked if he wasn't back. Might not be this year. He might wait one more year to see if Brian Kelly makes that jump to the NFL, because he's another one that's always named, and that's been a dream job of his. I mean, he had it in his rider at Utah. His dream jobs were Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. So if one of those jobs were to become open, even though publicly he says he wouldn't talk, I bet he would talk. Now, if he takes it, that's a different deal. The other ones, USC and Florida State, they have their own challenges. He does have experience in Florida, so maybe that is where he goes for recruiting. Might be easier for him to pick that right back up.
I would be shocked.
You'd be loving it.
I don't see it happening.
We'll see. I would wonder, like I said, I wonder what happens with Ohio State, because right now, a lot of people talk trash on Urban Meyer. They point to a couple of things. They say, well, look, the Florida program imploded. Look at all the skeletons he had in his closet. And I see a bunch of people talking about the sanctions. He's never had like an NCAA investigation, to my knowledge. He's never lost any bowl wins, correct? Or any wins.
Not yet.
People say not yet, but like they're not going to look into him.
Well, yeah, if he stays in working for CBS.
If they would have looked into him, they would have done it by now. He's a national champion at 2 different schools, like I said, 3-time national champion. So if I said, hey, Matt, Florida State hired a 3-time national championship to coach their team, you'd be pumped.
Hashtag not Urban.
Or if I said, hey, you just hired a coach that won the MAC.
I would say we want Saban.
Saban's not going there.
Yes, he will. He wants a challenge.
No, he has the 2. He has LSU national championship, and he has the Alabama one. Urban Meyer is going to one-up him by getting that 3rd somewhere else. A different school, I mean. 2 schools to 3 schools. It's the only legacy he can beat, especially if Dabo goes to Alabama and wins one. Then he'd have championships at 2 different schools.
Well, we'll bring back Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was an assistant coach at Florida State.
Steve Spurrier just won a championship, Matt.
He made one up.
He can't be worse than what Florida State's doing right now.
I'm just gonna make up like a champion and give myself a ring.
Do it. No one's gonna talk about it. You got anything else for college football?
I don't think.
Got anything for the final bell? I have no idea how long
there
we
was
went.
there was one thing, and I don't know if this is a thing or not a thing, but did you see the Tennessee game, Tennessee Alabama, where Pruitt grabbed the kid by the face mask?
No. Was it his own guy?
It was a brief. Yeah, it was his own quarterback. I think it was his quarterback fumbled or running back fumbled, and he like grabbed the hold of his face mask to like get his attention. And people were saying that it's an issue that you shouldn't lay hands on players and blah blah blah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I saw, kind of related, I saw a Clemson player punch another one, and Dabo made him ride the bus because you shouldn't be punching people in a game. Then I thought, that's kind of odd. A Clemson player punching someone? I thought it was Clemson players that got punched by opposing coaches. Zing. But on the same line, if you're grabbing a face mask, who cares? Woody Hayes punched that kid. And everyone still talks about how great Woody Hayes is. It doesn't matter what Urban Meyer does as a callback because he didn't punch a kid. He did nothing on the field that they're going to look back and see national championships. If Pruitt wants to grab a kid by the face mask, in a year or two, no one's going to remember. Remember when everyone was outraged about that fake locker video with Craig James's kid and that got Mike Leach fired? How many people at Texas Tech would love to have Mike Leach there right now? Everybody. Their team sucks. Like they've been shitty since he got there. Their coach got hired away by the NFL because they thought he did a good job at Texas Tech, and they were awful. That's how bad your program is. When the NFL guys look at your record at 7 wins and they say, hell, that's a good job. So the outrage stuff, grab a face mask. Smash a chair. Did you see the thing on Coach O? Orgeron? He comes in and he stone cold 2 Red Bulls and smashed a chair on the ground. But before one of their like noon games. Like that's the kind of crazy stuff that I think coaches should be back to doing. Grab a kid's face mask. They used to make a big deal about Harbaugh punching Wilton Spate's face mask and stuff before the game. Hey, that could cause CTE. Maybe he's just pumping the kid up. So I have no problem with it. Didn't see it. I mean, hell, for all I know, he grabbed the kid's face mask and twisted it into the ground, broke his neck. But
no, it wasn't even that bad. But he grabbed his face mask and like pulled it towards him, or like, so it was like almost like a look at me type deal. Yeah, but it wasn't. The neck wasn't bent. There was nothing exaggerated with it. I think it was a media overplay.
Oh, I'm not surprised. The media is always going to jump on it. I just gave a bunch of examples on stuff that the media jumped all over and people don't care about years later. So forget about it. It's sports. It's a team game. You're the coach. It's not like he poked the guy in the eye or like ripped his ear or like some bodily function. You grab the pad. Let him go. Anything else you got for this week's show?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. If you listen to the podcast, you probably have no idea, but we had some connection issues. If you're watching the live show and you made it this far, I applaud you because it's going to be re-uploaded once I cut out a bunch of the dead space and kind of piece it together. So I have no idea how long this episode went, but thanks for listening. Hopefully Skype is better behaved next week because we've never had audio drops like this, but we will see you next week.